I kicked my sister out on Christmas Day and her kids watched. For context, my sister Danny has stayed with me 3 times in the last 4 years, and each time she was supposed to leave after a few weeks, and each time it turned into months. The first time I let it go, the second time we had a conversation that she agreed to, and then ignored. This time she showed up in October with her 2 kids, Lily who's 7 and Connor who's 9, saying her landlord was selling the building and she had nowhere to go. I said okay because of the kids. I always say okay because of the kids. That's the thing Danny has always known about me and has always used. By December she'd been here 9 weeks. She wasn't paying anything toward groceries or utilities, wasn't helping around the house, and had stopped even pretending to look for a new apartment. She'd leave dishes in the sink for days, let the kids eat in my bedroom, which I'd specifically asked her not to, and every time I brought up a timeline, she'd start crying about how hard everything was. I felt guilty every single time. That was the pattern, and we both knew it. What I didn't know was that she'd been telling people I'd offered to let her stay indefinitely. My friend Becca mentioned it 2 weeks before Christmas, said Danny told her there was no rush, that I'd basically said take your time. I hadn't said anything close to that. When I brought it up, Danny said I was misremembering and making a big deal out of nothing. Christmas morning, my mom and my Aunt Lisa came over for breakfast. I'd spent the whole previous day cleaning and cooking, and was already exhausted before anyone arrived. We were all sitting around the table, opening gifts, when my mom mentioned that Danny had called her last week, asking to borrow money. My mom looked at me sideways when she said it, that look that meant there was more. Danny had told my mom she needed the money because I'd been charging her rent and taking it out of her account without asking. My mom had almost transferred her $300 based on that story alone. I put my fork down, I looked at Danny across the table and asked her to explain that. She went red immediately and said she'd just been venting, that mom had misunderstood, that it wasn't a big deal. I told her I hadn't charged her a single dollar in 9 weeks, and she knew that. She said I was making a scene on Christmas on purpose. My Aunt Lisa was completely still. Lily and Connor had stopped opening their gifts. I told Danny I needed her out by end of the week. She said I was being insane. I said I wasn't doing it anymore. Not the guilt, not the timeline conversations, not the stories she told people to make herself look like a victim in my own house. She stood up and said she had nowhere to go, that I was putting her kids out on the street at Christmas. I told her I'd given her 9 weeks and a free roof, and she'd spent that time lying to my mother. Connor had this expression that made me feel terrible. Lily had her gift in her lap and wasn't looking at anyone. My mom tried to step in, and I told her gently, but clearly that this wasn't her situation to fix. Danny grabbed her purse and said if I wanted her gone, she'd leave right now, like that was supposed to be a threat. I told her she didn't have to leave this minute, but the end of the week was firm. She looked at me waiting for me to fold. I didn't. She took the kids to the bedroom and closed the door. Danny left 3 days later. She texted 2 weeks after saying she was at a friend's place and the kids were fine. No apology. I didn't respond. My mom calls every few days to check on me. She hasn't asked me to apologize, and I think that means she understands more than she's letting on.